life. Do you struggle with knowing God's plan or purpose for your life? Do you know you're called to do something big and amazing, but you really don't know where to start? Or do you know what God is calling you to do with your unique life, but you're afraid to take action or you're afraid of getting it wrong? How to live a life of deep purpose is what we are tackling today on the Possibility Mom Live. How to create a life of deep purpose is a question I am asked all the time. And if you are watching this or listening to this, chances are I know this is a question that you are asking too. Right now, my infant son, Andrew, his life of purpose is eating and filling his diaper. That's your life of deep purpose right now. So you keep on doing that. But in my DMs constantly, in my coaching calls with my clients in Wealth Without Guilt, inside of my Facebook community, in the comments of my YouTube, I am asked all the time, how am I supposed to know exactly what God's plan is for my life, what his purpose is for me, what I'm supposed to do? And then, of course, how do I take action? Let me know in the comments if this resonates with you at all, where you might have a sense either number one, you have no idea what you're called to do, or you have confusion or insecurity about what you're called to do. And then if you have a sense of what you're called to do or what your deep purpose is, you have no idea how to take action. You have no idea how to get started and move forward, especially because you're afraid of getting it wrong. Let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram at Lisa Canning if you're listening to this after the fact, or leave me a comment live. So I have 4 strategies that I want to offer that I find I'm consistently offering my coaching clients. And when I look back at my own history of where I've been and the different things that I have tried have helped for me in the past. So get ready. I hope that this is a fun experience for you. And let's see if we can gain you some clarity on what you are supposed to do with your unique life. Okay. So, strategy number 1 I want to offer that I think is so helpful when it comes to the pursuit of creating a life of deep purpose and really following God's will for your life is to understand your spiritual gifts. So, the spiritual gifts, they show up in the Bible in a couple of places, and depending on who you talk to, there is a uniform list of them. But what is so important to understand about the gifts is that they are a gift for others. They are meant to be shared with the world to benefit other people. They're actually not for your benefit. And my favorite place to point people to understand their spiritual gifts is the Catherine of Siena Institute. The Catherine of Siena Institute, created by Sherry Woodell and her team there, has extensive information, a quiz on how you can, an assessment on how you can understand your spiritual gifts. There are other assessments on the internet as well, but I love directing, especially Catholics, to the Catherine of Siena Institute. And here is what is so interesting about the spiritual gifts. In the clients that I coach, it is basically always, like always, when I read their gifts and then I look at their business, I'm like, wow, like you could not have orchestrated this any more uniquely. You're using your gifts in such a unique way. And so I think that where living a life of deep purpose is concerned and having a sense of where is God calling me specifically? What is he calling me into specifically right now in this season? I love looking at the gifts because it can provide such a unique or again, a unique to you pathway for how you should be spending your time. And whether or not you're in business or you are trying simply to understand yourself and ensure that you're following God's will in your life and you're building this life of deep purpose, you can benefit from the spiritual gifts. So let's like just tackle, I'm going to just bring up a couple of examples of clients that I coach who are both in business and in not. I have one client who has the spiritual gift of music and the spiritual gift of prophecy. And so I've been really encouraging her to use her gift of music as a platform builder. So, where she could do a live show, for example, similar to how you watch me here, where she could have even just live shows where people gather in person and listen to her sing, where she could use her gift of music at retreats or events, but then pair it with her gift of prophecy, where she is speaking, where she is encouraging people, where she is opening her mouth and sharing something unique, something prophetic, potentially, obviously, because that's her spiritual gift. To give another example of somebody that I am currently coaching, I have several people in my world who are gifted in the area of writing and exhortation, which I have to kind of understand the difference between prophecy and exhortation. I don't have that off the top of my head. But similar to that first client, I'm like, all right, Instagram is going to be your place where you are going to write incredibly thoughtful comments, incredibly thoughtful captions to your images where people are going to pause and think and save and share. I think Instagram is such a powerful place. If you are building a platform, if you are building a business, um, I think Instagram is such a powerful place to get your ideas out there in a succinct way. And if writing is your spiritual gift, I want to encourage you to see where a platform like Instagram might take you in terms of finding deep purpose. And Instagram is really interesting because, again, this can be a place for a mom who's building a business to build an audience, but this can also be a place for a mom who simply wants an outlet, who simply wants to encourage others, who simply wants to use her experience and then potentially make that into a business one day. I think that that could serve a non-business owner beautifully to simply feel connected and to communicate with the world. Alrighty. So spiritual gifts for the gifts of others, for the benefit of others. Catherine of Siena Institute is my favorite way. And it can truly reveal how God wants you to serve others as well as live a life of deep purpose because they are truly meant for the benefit of others. All right, that's strategy number one. Strategy number two on how to create a life of deep purpose is StrengthsFinder. You have heard me talk about this on this podcast before, and it's because it can help you in such an immense way get unstuck. Right before this call, I had a coaching call with Michelle Dunn, who is a strengths based coach. She helps people to understand themselves in a way that can make radical, incredible change. And we were sort of the swapping stories of people that she coaches, how strengths has benefited me, how strengths can hugely change your life if you are a entrepreneur. And let me just elucidate why I care so much about strengths. I really think if I were to bring it to a concise sentence, understanding your strengths and how they make you unique can save you a lot of pain. I really think like if I were to just like sum it up, understanding your strengths and who you are uniquely can save you a lot of pain. Now, I want to share with you in my own life why this is so important. I've realized that based on my unique strengths, I am great with people. I'm great showing up. I'm great going live. I'm great um, doing things like this, where I can come on live and have a good time. Basically, use my strength of empathy, use my strength of strategic. Coming on live and doing things like this fires up my achiever. Um, and I have a strength called relator that loves to get to know people deeply. And obviously, this is a little bit of a one sided conversation, although you comment back to me. But I do feel like, in a kind of special way, I'm having a conversation with you. And I wish I could have a deep conversation with everyone. It's also why I love coaching. But when you can reverse engineer from your strengths who you are, this is a comment or a phrase that Michelle uses all the time in coaching with me. Who are you and who are you not? I can't think of a more succinct way to create a life of deep purpose than that. Who are you and who are you not? Because when you can discover who you are not, that is where we can have so much freedom. That is where we can have flexibility, if you will, where you can pivot from things that aren't sort of in line with who you are. And strengths is what can provide this powerful, powerful lens. I think, again, how to understand or how to live a life of deep purpose, we have to define purpose. So maybe let's pause for just a second and define what purpose means. And to me, purpose is living in line with what God has called you to do. And what does that mean? That means understanding yourself and understanding yourself in light of God as the ultimate creator, but not only the ultimate creator of the universe and everything living and breathing and being, but creator of you, and that you have been created for a unique mission. I love the quote by John Henry Newman, Cardinal John Henry Newman, where he talks about being called for a unique mission. I am uniquely made. I am called for a unique mission. And so to me, the more we can understand ourselves, it's why I'm a bit of a, why I have such a deep interest in these personality assessments and these tests, because of the light it can give you into yourself and how you're uniquely made. And so to live a life of deep purpose, rather than just the reason why I'm providing these tools, rather than just sort of like aimlessly throwing darts at a board, if you will, rather than throwing darts at a board, why not narrow the darts, if you will, narrow the focus of the bullseye? And this is where things like the gifts and the strengths can help to narrow down, so that, again, we're being efficient with the time that God has given us. I don't think anyone likes the idea of feeling like they don't know their purpose. And why do you think that is? It's a little uncomfortable, isn't it? I know myself at various stages in my life. I mean, and it happens today, where I'm like, I ask myself the question, like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Lord, like, is this really what you want for my life? Like, sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's actually really uncomfortable. But we have got to continue that walk. We have got to continue um, that pursuit of purpose, because ultimately, I think that's where we are going to give the most to the world, and where we are also going to meet our maker. Like, I think so much intimacy with our Lord happens when we are in the pursuit of what my friends at the Metanoia Academy call our unique call to sanctity. And so I just love offering these tools as a way to further understand who you are in light of our creator. Okay, so strategy number 1 is to really get in touch with your spiritual gifts. Strategy number 2 is to get in touch with your natural strengths by using a tool like StrengthsFinder. And then strategy number 3 that I like to share, which is more of a lens, but I think very, very, very helpful, is to really understand your temperament. Because I think, again, it can narrow the focus of how you spend your time when you can understand that there is a unique way that we're all created based on temperament. And so, very quickly, there are sanguines, there are who love a party, love people, are typically like very outgoing and are very motivated and encouraged and enlivened by people. Then we've got the cholerics, who are very control oriented, who love things done their way. We have the melancholics who love things done perfectly. So it's a little bit of a different lens than their way. They love things done perfectly. And then we have the phlegmatics who do not like intensity and very much appreciate retreating or are very much energized by more time alone. And why I think this is helpful in the discussion of living a life of deep purpose is that, again, it can help you understand there are certain things that I'm not going to naturally be inclined to, or I'm naturally going to enjoy. So let me bring up a specific example. I remember that it gave me a lot of freedom when I realized that being a sanguine and loving people um, could be integrated into all the things I do. When you look at the way that I run my business, my webinars, I like to make them feel like a party. My when I do group coaching experiences, I like to start with fun music. Like there are many ways that I infuse my sanguine personality in my business. And there was a time when I thought that that was wrong. Like there was a time when I thought, well, no, like online business training, especially in business, needs to be serious, or online business training needs to like look a certain way, when we can simply embrace that there is a totally unique way that we can do anything in our lives and completely accept I'm going to do this the Lisa way. Again, I just believe that there can be so much freedom achieved. And in this freedom is again where I argue we can meet our creator. I think there's an interesting, like when I think of the word freedom, I'm not, the things that come to mind to me are more like freedom is like hands in the air. Freedom is almost like this prayer posture of surrender. It's not like I'm escaping something. That's just how I define the word freedom. And so if you have a different sort of lens on the way freedom sounds to you, I just want to inform you of what the lens I'm bringing to it. To me, freedom is this. It's like a posture of prayer. Like when you are praying some great like praise and worship music with your hands in the air where it feels like you can be free. So freedom to me isn't like I'm escaping something. It's like a state of I can be myself. And that's why I like to include the temperament in this conversation of creating a life of deep purpose, because it can help you to, again, like I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it can help you to establish this is simply who I am and this is who I'm not. And I just believe that so much freedom can be accomplished in that. And then the final strategy that I think is so helpful in creating a life of deep purpose is to examine your personal timeline. So, the story of your life, simply taking a look at the things in your life in the early days, middle days, current days, all the days where you were thriving. What are periods in your life where you were thriving? What were periods in your life where you weren't thriving? What did you learn from those experiences? What do the periods of thriving have in common? Who were the people who influenced you? Literally, like draw a line and literally just list out all the things that have happened to you that have had significance in shaping your outlook, your personality, all the things. And why I think this can be so helpful is we can start to look at patterns. We can look at the times in your life when you were the most filled with energy. We can look at the times in your life when they were the most challenging or most problematic. When I look at my own personal timeline, I can see that I was always coaching. Even as a small child, there were like I was constantly coaching. My little sister's birthday parties, I would run them all. Even as like a leader in the classroom, I remember, even as young as grade 2, grade 3, like There were always things I was, helping out with or directing. Like I can see this pattern of coaching from a very, very early age. And I kind of abandoned it when I was older because of various reasons, like thinking that there were other paths for me. There was a time when I thought that the only pathway, my only life of deep purpose was being an interior designer. And then we learned that that was just simply not the case. But again, we can get later on in life influenced by um, the opinions of others, wanting to please others, our self-image, our self-concept, and 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 truly a life of deep purpose to me is also one where you like yourself. And I know that might sound funny, but I think so often we can tie our purpose and our identity in the expectations of other people. And there does come a point, like a reckoning, really, when we realize, oh, wait a minute, like this isn't going to work. This actually isn't going to work because I'm actually miserable. I'm actually really not happy. And so if you're in a period where you don't know your purpose or you're not entirely sure what God is calling you into, examining your childhood, examining the times in your life that you were so happy, even like asking yourself questions about like, what did I really want to be when I grew up as a child? Like, what was I always talking about? What do my parents remember me saying? These can all provide interesting little breadcrumbs and clues as to what your life of deep purpose could look like today. And then, of course, I didn't write this down as a formal strategy, but truly, what we have to do at the heart of it all is pray and listen. Really, to really know your life of deep purpose, to really create it, to really start taking action, we need to pray and we need to listen. What do we love to read in Jeremiah, right? 10, 11, is that I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare, plans for a future full of hope. But what comes right after? And I believe it's 12. Forgive me that I can't remember if it's 11 or 12. But what comes right after? If you call to me, I will listen. If you call to me, I will listen. Forgive me if that's not exactly, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. We have to ask the Lord, what is your plan for my life? What do you want my life to be? Like, what is deep purpose um for that you have created for me? And then listen. But what I see too often, and I see this in in the various business people exploring business in their life, or what I see from moms who maybe are feeling a bit of restlessness or feeling like there is something more that they're meant to be doing, but they're super confused. And so then there's like a lot of spinning of wheels of confusion. What I see too often is people taking no action. And so, what I want to end this podcast with is the creation part. These tools can be really great lenses that can provide you breadcrumbs, that can provide you clues into how you are supposed to be spending your time, what gifts you're supposed to offer the world. But then we have to simply take action. And of course, I think it's a very natural thing to hang on to. And it's, I think, a fear that is a reasonable one to hang on to. Nobody wants to do things against God's will for their life. That is a reasonable fear to have for a person who has decided and chosen to put Christ at the center of their life and Christ at the center of their heart. Reasonable, okay? Not something that is you should shame yourself for. But what I see too often is people then get paralyzed and be in this constant state of discernment. Well, I'm just going to wait on the Lord. Oh, well, I'm in a season of discernment. And here's the thing, we will never know exactly. Like we can't know exactly. There's just too much inevitability in life. There's too much variability. There's just too it's just not possible. It's just, I think that is something that we can all agree on as a reality that we cannot fight with, is that there is just simply no certainty. We cannot always know. Yes, sometimes God might say, exactly, this is exactly what I want you to do. But most of the time, if not all the time, he doesn't exactly give us like a written playbook. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I might be missing some examples here, but in my sleep deprived state, there might be some examples when he literally gave a playbook. But I'm talking most of the time for the women I coach who are trying to decide, am I supposed to go back to work or not? Am I supposed to homeschool my kids or not? Am I supposed to start a business or not? Am I supposed to, start a homeschool co op or not? Most of the time, it's not exactly spelled out for us. And this is where faith is so important. I've been spending a lot of time in two areas lately. One area that I've been spending a lot of time in is just this concept and thinking about faith is the belief in things unseen. We read that in Hebrews. Faith is the belief in things unseen. And I've just been pondering this a lot in my heart, how necessary it is for us, especially those of us who are business owners, but everybody has to step into this place of belief in things unseen. Because again, like just logically, if you want to create something and you don't know how to do it, there is going to be so much unseen, right? And if you already knew how to do it, you'd probably already have done it. So, this place of the unseen, this place of uncertainty is, I argue, a place that we need to just get really comfortable with. So I've been thinking a lot about and spending a lot of time pondering, how do we get more and more comfortable in this space or place unseen? And truthfully, like what I've landed on in my prayer and in my experience with all the women I coach is that we simply have to step into that space and trust that God has got us. Now, I don't want to speak, I'm not a biblical scholar of any by any stretch of the imagination. But my spiritual director was sharing with me once about the Israelites and how when they were in the desert for 40 years, the path that they took was actually very windy. If I remember this correctly from my spiritual director, the path that they took was actually very like full of literal turns. The distance between where they started and where they ended in the promised land, the land of milk and honey on the other side, was actually a very fairly direct, if I'm quoting my spiritual director correctly, was actually not too long of a time period to get there. Like if they had just walked straight, it would not have taken that much time. But because there were so many twists and turns in their story, it took a long, long time. What's my point I'm trying to make here is that like, do you think that when they were doing that and like meandering in the desert asking the Lord like, why have you forsaken us, like get us to this place of milk and honey, do you think that they didn't also have fear, trepidation, frustration? I think of people like Job in the Bible. I recently started reading the book of Job with my daughter because she had it for a school assignment. And I was like, you know what, Rose? Like, let's actually go back to the beginning. I've actually never read the book of Job sequentially. Why don't we read it from the beginning? And oh my word, was that not a relatable book of the Bible? The complaining that Job does, the despair, the demise, the like he had no faith in things unseen, at least in the beginning. As much as I've read in Job, he did not have belief in things unseen at that point. And so what do we do instead? We accept and acknowledge that it's scary. Like if you want to step into this space and have faith that God wants you to live a life of deep purpose, accept that it is scary, accept that there are certain things that are challenging about not knowing the outcome, but then do it anyway. And then the other thing that my beautiful, incredible mindset coach, Erin Ingold, has been encouraging me in is to examine when I'm making decisions out of fear. And I just think this is a really important place when it comes to creating a life of deep purpose, when it comes to taking action on God's plan for your life. Notice where you're making plans or making decisions from places of fear. And this is another thing that I think we all have to accept is that it doesn't work out well. Typically, when we make a decision out of a place of fear, it might not work out well. It also might not work out ideally, like meaning it is not the most ideal thing for you. And so I offer those things as a way to again have some framework around what can you do to try to figure out what your life of deep purpose might look like. And then if you are afraid to get it wrong, how can you take action anyway? Because honestly, what I believe and what a lot of my training has led me to believe now is that the worst case scenario typically doesn't happen. And I honestly, like, I want to invite you to just ponder that right now. That the worst case scenario of whatever situation, whether it's starting a business, homeschooling, co-oping, moving, whatever it is, the worst case scenario many times doesn't happen. I don't want to say every time, of course, but many times the worst case scenario doesn't happen. And actually, what ends up being worse is staying in the exact same spot that you are in. So I want to invite you to ponder that. I want to invite you to ponder all the things that I've shared with you here. And I want to share two really concrete tools that I have found so immensely helpful in my own life and in the lives of my clients. And the first tool, and I've put all the links for these things in the show notes, is to join the Metanoia Catholic Academy. And why I feel so passionate about this tool is because of a few things. Number one, there's opportunity to be coached by my mindset coach. Erin Ingold has changed my life. Her and her husband, Matt, and the other coaches that they have inside of Metanoia Catholic Academy have been trained or have been developed. They developed mindset coaching in this authentically Catholic, in line completely with Catholic anthropology. And there is a difference when we have Christ at the center of our transformation. No true transformation can occur truly without Christ at the center of that transformation. And so inside of the academy, there's the opportunity to be coached by Aaron and Matt Ingold, but they've also got this workshop that if this is the topic that you are very interested in learning more on, creating a life of deep purpose, they have got a workshop called Your Unique Call to Sanctity. And I have sent clients to this workshop. I have taken this workshop. There is just such wisdom in the worksheet that accompanies that and the teaching. And I really want to encourage you. They've also got about 3 workshops on taking action. And so, if that is something that you are concerned about as well as a result of listening to this podcast and you want to gain more clarity, click the link in the show notes for how you can join the Metanoia Catholic Academy. It is honestly so worth the $47 that you will invest a month. Honestly, like, if you're curious and are looking for more help than this podcast can provide you, obviously, because it's a one-sided conversation, I really want to encourage you to take a look at the Metanoia Catholic Academy. I am a proud partner with these guys. It has changed my life, and I really believe that any Catholic who is seeking mindset coaching and more direction in their lives will find this immensely helpful. And then I want to share with anyone who is in business. Now, if you have a dream in your heart to start a business or to grow a business, I want to invite you to come to a live free webinar I'm hosting next Wednesday at 12 p.m. And the registration link is down below in the show notes. Now, why I think this is so important in today's conversation is I believe that for some people here listening, Your business is part of your life of deep purpose. It is part of your deep purpose. It is how you're going to leave a legacy. It is how you are going to help people's lives. Now, I want to peel back the curtain on something that's sort of kind of vulnerable. Today, I had a coaching call. It's interesting. I purposefully time the recording time of this podcast. So when I go live on YouTube and when this podcast then gets translated into podcast form, I purposely time it Fridays at noon because on Friday mornings is typically when I reserve windows for my own personal development. So I'm either meeting with my spiritual director or I'm meeting with my coach, Erin, because I often come out of those, well, all the time, come out of those experiences energized and full of an insight that I really feel very blessed that I can share with you here. And I was mentioning to Aaron just some struggles that I was having in my own mindset with my business. I am prone to being very hard on myself. I am prone, as I've shared here on the podcast, to be very afraid of failure. I have shared here that um, I have a lot of the same fears and anxieties that a lot of my coaching clients in Wealth Without Guilt, my group coaching experience have, where I struggle with feeling like an imposter. I struggle with feeling like, can I really do this? And the thought that was coming up for me today in coaching was like, can you really do this? Like, just the thought of like your business is not working. And it was really interesting because Aaron encouraged me to look at my business like I look at this baby. Where, when a baby throws up on you, you might be irritated for a moment because, like, you got spit up, but you don't get mad at your baby, you know? She encouraged me to look at how defenseless and innocent and how much an infant needs protection, to treat my business as tenderly. So for example, I don't think any mother would, look at their child and say, well, you're not working, or you're not doing like what you're supposed to be doing. Like, yes, we might get frustrated if a baby is crying a lot, but what I'm talking about is this sort of like existential um failure. Like, nobody would go up to an infant and be like, you're failing. You know what I mean? Like, can you agree with me there that like it would require somebody to be in a very different psychological state to say to an infant who can't do anything, who is learning what it means to, you know, uh, be alive, like, to literally say to that infant, like, you are failing. And she encouraged me to have the same tenderness and protection for my business, and to even thank it for the things that I've done. I posted this on my Instagram yesterday, how, there can be a relief in a mom when a baby goes to sleep. Let's say the baby's been fussy, or the baby, whatever, like just even a toddler, toddlers are so busy. And then you're like, oh my gosh, can you please, is it nap time yet? Is it nap time yet? You finally put them down for a nap, or like I did yesterday, put my infant down to sleep, but then you stare at them, or you pull out your phone and you start looking at videos of them. Like, let me know if this is all relatable, that you put your child down, but then you're like, oh my gosh, can I just stare at them some more? What if we could have that same tenderness, that same affection, that same gratitude, even so that even when a child spits up on us, we're like, "Aw, look at you, you spit up," right? And so I bring this up because this is so important for those of you who are building a business, and that's going to be part of your deep purpose. And these are some of the concepts, these very mindset, these very existential, these very identity based aspects of business. These are some of the things that we tackle in Wealth Without Guilt because truly, these are some of the ways that people do not move forward in their businesses. When their businesses are things that they are annoyed at, when business becomes something that is like where shame and blame and drudgery are concerned, this is where just things can be so different and so much more free. Remember what I said earlier in this podcast that for me, creating a life of deep purpose has an element of freedom in there. And again, it's not a freedom where you're running away from something, it's more of a surrender, hands in the air, just like feeling like you're in this incredible place of union with God, where you are doing what you're meant to be doing, where the Holy Spirit is so present. I believe and I have a passion for helping moms to find this in their business. And I believe when that happens, that's a really big part of when business becomes fun, when money gets made, when um, truly we're stepping into that place of our unique call to sanctity and serving the people and doing the things that we are meant to do with our time here. So I want to invite you to click the link in the show notes, or if you're watching this live, click the link below this video and join me for my free webinar on Wednesday. I'm really curious what you think about this topic of creating a life of deep purpose. Do you feel like you're living a life of deep purpose? Is this something that you think is in your reach, or are you confused about what this looks like? Or do you struggle with taking action because you're afraid of getting it wrong? I would love to know. Please connect me with me on Instagram at Lisa Canning. And if this was helpful to you, I would love for you to share this podcast with a friend and leave me a review wherever you like to listen to podcasts. I'm so grateful to spend this time with you. And I look forward to seeing you either inside the Metanoia Catholic Academy or on my webinar next Wednesday. Thank you so much. Abigail says here in the comments, thank you for the hope and the wisdom and the sharing that I'm unique. I'm suffering from comparison and competition. I really think that this is the answer to competition and comparison when we can really understand I am uniquely made. I have a unique fight. I have something that only I can do, a unique mission that only I can do. This becomes the antidote to comparison and competition. Janet says, struggling with getting it wrong. And Janet, just the encouragement I want to give you is that I think it's actually worse to stay exactly where you are than to try something and get it wrong, because then you've got the intel, right? You've got the intel, you've got the learning. What if getting it wrong actually wasn't bad at all and it simply was something to accept? All right, my friends, thanks for spending some time with me, and I can't wait to spend more time with you soon.